Hi, everyone. I'm Toni Land, and welcome back to Unlocking Knowledge, the reading of the Mandate for Leadership Project 2025. Now, this was written by the Heritage Foundation in 2023. Now, for those who are continuing on this journey, I'm going to give you a reminder. And for those who are new on this journey, some have asked, why are we reading this book? And really, it goes back to my people being destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. So we are being very intentional and stepping back from being spoon-fed information through all different modes and really leaning in. And I will be reading the book literally word for word. And so that way we are able to prayerfully shape our own opinions and our own thoughts. So with that being said, I won't be offering my opinions and thoughts either. I don't want to shape your thinking. Again, I want you to be prayerful so that your thoughts and opinions are truly the ones that you have prayerfully shaped. Now, I do want to say one more thing. This reading is not sexy reading. I mean, it's not like murder mystery. It's not a thriller. It's not a fantasy. Well, maybe it kind of is, but it's really not. It's not a fantasy, but it could kind of really be a reality show. But I am going to ask you, be intentional, lean in for that 20 to 40 minutes while you're riding to work, while you're getting dressed for work, while you're exercising, whatever time works for you. Listen to the reading so that, again, we get knowledge, we get wisdom, we're not destroyed. So let's lean in for today. In our last session, we had finished the foreword and we started into section 1, taking the reins of government, and we finished the overview that's offered in Taking the Reins of Government. Today, we're going to lean right into section 1 of chapter 1. Now, this section is entitled White House Office, and it's written by Rick Dearborn. From popular culture to academia, the American presidency has long been a prominent fixture of the national imagination. Naturally so, since it is the beating heart of our nation's power and prestige. It has played, for instance, a feature role in innumerable movies and television shows and has been prodded, analyzed, and critiqued by countless books, essays, and studies. I'll tell you right there, I'm going to switch out to my readers because that is much, much better. Okay. But like nearly everything else in life, there is no substitute for first-hand experience, which this manual has compiled from the experience of presidential appointees and provides in accessible form for future use. With respect to presidency, it is best to begin with our republic's foundational document. The Constitution gives the executive power to the president. It designates him as commander-in-chief and gives him the responsibility to take care that the laws be fully executed. It further prescribes that the president might seek the assistance of the principal officer in each of the executive departments. Beginning with George Washington, every president has been supported by some form of White House office, consisting of direct staff officers as well as a cabinet comprised of department and agency leads. Since the inaugural administration of the late 18th century, citizens have chosen to devote their time and their talent to defending and strengthening our nation by serving at the pleasure of the president. Their shared patriotic endeavor has proven to be a noble one, not least because the jobs in what is now known as the White House Office, WHO, are among the most demanding in all of government. The president must rely on the men and women appointed to the WHO. There simply are not enough hours in the day to manage the affairs of state single-handedly. So delegation is not just advisable, it is essential. The decisions that assistants and senior advisors make will directly impact the administration, its legacy, and most important, the fate of the country. Their agenda must therefore be the president's agenda. Choosing who will carry out that agenda on a daily basis is not only one of the first decisions a president makes in office, but also one of the most critical. The tone and tempo of an administration are often determined on January 20. Chief of Staff. As with most of the positions that will be covered in this first chapter, the Chief of Staff is also an assistant to the President. However, the Chief is truly first among equals. Of all presidential staff members, the Chief is the most critical to implementation of the President's vision for the country. The Chief also has a dual role as manager of the chiefs of both the WHO and the Executive Office of the President, EOP. The Chief of Staff's first managerial task is to establish an organizational chart for the WHO. It should be simple and contain clear lines of authority and responsibility to avoid conflicts. It should also identify specific points of contact for each element of the government outside of the White House. These contacts should include the White House liaisons, who are selected by the Office of Presidential Personnel, PPO. Giving guidance from the President, the Chief endeavors to implement the President's agenda by setting priorities for the WHO. This process begins by taking stock of the President's campaign promises, identifying current and prospective opportunities, and then delegating policy priorities among the departments and agencies of the Cabinet throughout the 3 White House Policy Councils: 1, the National Economic Council, NEC, the Domestic Policy Council, DPC, and the National Security Council, NSC. The President is briefed on all of his policy priorities by his cabinet and senior staff as directed by the Chief. The Chief, along with the senior WHO staff, maps out the issues and themes that will be covered daily and weekly. The Chief then works with policy councils, the Cabinet, and the Office of Communications and Office of Legislative Affairs, OLA, to sequence and execute the rollout of policies and announcements. White House counsel and senior advisors and senior counselors are also intimately involved. All senior staff report to the Chief of Staff, either directly or through his 2 or 3 deputies, unless the President determines that a particular assistant to President reports directly to him. Most chiefs have interacted directly with cabinet officers and a select number of direct reports. In most cases, the direct reports to the chief are his 2 or 3 deputies, the communications director, PPO director, White House counsel, and senior advisors. Occasionally, the Office of Public Liaison, OPL, the Cabinet Secretary, and Intergovernmental Affairs, IGA, also report directly to the chief. Usually, however, they report instead to a deputy chief of staff. The chief of staff's main challenge is time management. His use of his deputies, meetings with senior staff, and direction provided to the WHO must all balance directly with the daily needs of the president. A successful chief steers the West Wing using his management of and influence with the various individuals and entities around him. It goes without saying that selecting the right person to be chief is vital. Deputy chiefs of staff. In recent years, presidents typically have appointed 2 deputy chiefs of staff, a deputy chief of staff for management and operations, and a deputy chief of staff for policy. There have also been other types of deputy chiefs whose roles have been included, for example, overseeing strategy, planning, and implementation. Chiefs of staff have then occasionally appointed a principal deputy chief to be in charge of guiding decision-making, organizational structure, and information flow. Principal deputy chiefs of staff. Not all chiefs of staff have tapped a principal deputy. A major reason is that doing so adds another layer of command complexity. When principal deputies have been installed, their roles have varied based on the needs of particular chiefs. Most principal deputies have functioned as doorkeepers, sorting through action items, taking on those that can be handled at their own level, and passing up others that truly require the attention of the chief of staff or of the president. Principal deputies have also assumed control of the scheduling functions, normally under the operations deputy, and have worked directly with policy councils at the direction of the chief of staff. The OPL and the Office of Political Affairs, OPA, also have reported to a principal deputy. Okay, so now let's talk about the Deputy Chief of Staff for Management and Operations. This falls up under the Principal Deputy Chiefs of Staff. The Deputy Chief of Staff for Management and Operations oversees the President's schedule and all logistical aspects of his movement within and outside of the White House. For example, both air travel on Air Force One and Marine One, and ground transportation. This deputy also interfaces directly with the Secret Service, as well as the military offices tasked with keeping the president and his family safe. In the past, this deputy has also worked with the NSC, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, and the intelligence community, and on advancing all foreign trips. If their roles are separated from that of the policy deputy, this deputy should have a strong grasp of international affairs and robust foreign policy credentials. This deputy further manages all facets of the working White House: technology, grounds management, support staff, personnel administration, and communications. This individual therefore needs to be meticulous and ideally should possess a great deal of command and control experience. Next, we have the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Again, this is falling under the Principal Deputy Chiefs of Staff. the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. In some administrations, the functions of the IGA, OPA, and OPL and other advisors within the WHO have fallen under the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. For conservatives, this arrangement could help to connect the WHO's outreach to political and external groups and be a strong conduit for state and local elected officials, state party organizations, and both grasstop and grassroots groups. This deputy works directly with the Chief of Staff, cabinet officers, and all three policy councils to support the development and implementation of the president's agenda. This deputy chief should therefore have impressive policy credentials in the realm of economic, domestic, and social affairs. Next, senior advisors. Presidents have surrounded themselves with senior advisors whose experience and interest are not necessarily neatly defined. In recent administrations, senior advisors have been appointed to offer broad guidance on political matters and communications issues. Others have acted as czars for specific projects or policy areas. The most powerful senior advisors frequently have had a long personal relationship with the president and often have spent a significant amount of time with him within and outside of the White House. They have been asked not only to provide guidance on a variety of policy issues, but also to offer instruction on communicating with the American people and the media. In a number of administrations, new offices or councils have been created to support senior advisors. For the most part, their functions have been duplicative or overlapping, as a result of which these offices have tended to be short-lived. Even so, senior advisors should be provided the staff and resources that their portfolios require. To ensure that senior advisors are effective, their portfolios must be clearly delineated and clearly communicated across the White House. This too is the responsibility of the Chief of Staff. Office of White House Counsel. The Office of White House Counsel provides legal guidance to the President and elements of the EOP on a host of issues, including presidential powers and privileges, ethics compliance, review of clemency applications, and judicial nominations. The selection of White House counsel is one of the most important decisions an incoming president will make. The office is not designed to create or advance policies on its own initiative, nor should it do so. Rather, it is dedicated to guiding the president and his reports on how, within the bounds of the law, to pursue and realize the president's agenda. While the White House counsel does not serve as the president's personal attorney in non-official matters, it is almost impossible to delineate exactly where an issue is strictly personal and has no bearing on the president's official function. The White House counsel needs to be deeply committed both to the president's agenda and to affording the president proactive counsel and zealous representation. That individual directly advises the president as he performs the duties of the office and this requires a relationship that is built on trust, confidentiality, and candor. The Office of White House Counsel is also responsible for ensuring that each component of the White House adheres to all applicable legal and ethical guidelines, which often requires ongoing training and monitoring to ensure compliance. This means ensuring that White House staff regularly consult with office attorneys on required financial disclosures, received gifts, potential conflicts of interest, and other ethical concerns. The Office of White House Counsel is the first line of defense for the EOP. Its staff must take seriously the duty to protect the powers and privileges of the president from encroachments by Congress, the judiciary, and the administrative components of departments and agencies. In addition to the White House Counsel, the office includes deputies, assistants, associates, and legal support staff. The assistant and associate attorneys are often specialists in particular areas of the law and offer guidance to the EOP on issues related to national security, criminal law, environmental law, and a host of administrative and regulatory matters. Attorneys working in the Office of White House Counsel serve as legal advisors to the White House policy operation by reviewing executive orders, agency regulations, and other policy-related functions. Here again, subordinates should be deeply committed to the president's agenda and see their role as helping to accomplish the agenda through problem solving and advocacy. They should not erect roadblocks out of an abundance of caution. Rather, they should offer practical legal advice on how to promote the president's agenda within the bounds of the law. The White House Counsel's office cannot serve as a finishing school to credential the next set of white shoe law firm attorneys or federal judges in waiting who cabin their opinions for fear their elite credentials could be tarnished through a policy disagreement. Rather, it should function more as an activist yet ethical plaintiff's firm that advocates for its client, the administration's agenda, within the limits imposed by the Constitution and the duties of the legal profession. The Office of the White House Counsel also serves as the primary gateway for communication between the White House and the Department of Justice, DOJ. Traditionally, both the White House Counsel and the Attorney General have issued a memo requiring all contact between the two institutions to occur only between the Office of White House Counsel and the Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General. The next administration should re-examine this policy and determine whether it might be more efficient or more appropriate for communication to occur through additional channels. The White House Counsel also works closely with the DOJ Office of Legal Counsel to seek opinions on, for example, matters of policy development and the constitutionality of presidential power and privileges, and with OLA and the DOJ Office of Legal Policy on presidential judicial nominees. When a new president takes office, he will need to decide expeditiously how to handle any major ongoing litigation or other pending legal matters that might present a challenge to his agenda. To offer guidance, the White House counsel must get up to speed as quickly as possible on all significant ongoing legal challenges across the executive branch that might affect the new administration's policy agenda, and must be prepared at the outset of the administration to present recommendations to the president, including recommendations for reconsidering or reversing positions of the previous administration with any significant litigation. This review will usually require consulting with the new political leadership at the Justice Department, including during the transition period. No day is predictable at the White House. Therefore, to handle the pace and volatility of affairs, the Office of White House Counsel must offer measured legal guidance in a timely manner. This often means foregoing law review style memos about esoteric legal concepts and instead quickly providing high level yet incisive guidance. Due to evolving world events, domestic affairs, and political pressures, the office often faces legal questions for which there may not be a wealth of precedent. Attorneys in the Office of White House Counsel therefore must work collaboratively within the White House and the Department of Justice, relying on each other as a team to ensure that proper legal guidance is delivered to the president. The president should choose a White House counsel who is well-versed in the Constitution, administrative and regulatory law, and the inner workings of Congress and the political process. Instead of choosing a specialist, the president should hire a counsel with extensive experience in a wide range of complex legal subjects. Moreover, while a candidate with elite credentials might seem ideal, the best one will be, above all, loyal to the president and the Constitution. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and push us through staff secretary, and then we'll probably stop there for today. So let's go to staff secretary. The office of the staff secretary is rarely visible to the outside world, but it performs work of tremendous importance. The office is similar to a military commander's adjutant and is responsible for fielding and managing a vast amount of information at the top of its organization. This includes information on its way to the Oval Office, as well as information flowing out from the Oval Office. Because of its gatekeeping function, the position of staff secretary is one of extreme trust, and the individual who possesses it should be vetted to work as an honest broker in the president's service. The office of the staff secretary has been described as the last control point before papers reach the Oval Office. A great deal of information is headed towards the Oval Office at any moment. This includes presidential decision memos, those passed by Congress, which may be accompanied by signing or veto statements, and briefing books, reading materials, samples of constituent mail, personal mail, and drafts of speeches. The staff secretary makes certain that these materials are complete, well ordered, and up to date before they reach the president. This necessarily means that the staff secretary plays a role in determining who weighs in on policy matters and when. As noted above, the staff secretary also handles information leaving the Oval Office. The president may have questions after reviewing incoming material, may wish to seek more information, or may demand revisions. The staff secretary is often responsible for directing these requests to the appropriate places and following up on them to ensure that they are completed. One of the staff secretary's critical functions is managing and overseeing the clearance process for the president's daily, nightly briefing book. This book is filled with all the reading material and leading documentation the president needs in the morning and the evening to help him make decisions. The staff secretary also oversees the use of the president's signature, whether by hand or by auto pen, and manages the Office of the Executive Clerk, Office of Records Management, and Office of Presidential Correspondence. So we're going to stop there for today. So remember, my people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. So today and every day, get some knowledge.